Greetings and salutations all, Antonio Tambornino here with my review of Ant-Man. The most hilarious thing about Ant-Man is its title. Also, the commercials really weren't helping in making it look any better. I am pleased to say it's the coolest Marvel movie since Captain America the Winter Soldier. Or is it the coolest Marvel movie since Iron Man 2, The Wolverine? Ant-Man is easily the second best Marvel movie yet. And that's saying something. Because at this point, I've seen all the Marvel movies. That is, all the Marvel movies since Bryan Singer gave the world X-Men in 2000. And there are only two movies that I've seen that Marvel Studios has made that have disappointed me. And there are still many more superhero flicks to come. Before I saw anything Ant-Man related, I was completely ignorant of this character. Never knew Ant-Man was a thing, whatever thing that it could be. Never saw any cartoons, any toys, nothing. Ant-Man hit me. A guy who's into cartoons and comics and anime, and also a pretty big Marvel fan. Like something hit me out of left field. The name is not really that cool. The commercials made it look mildly entertaining at best. But hey, I was willing to give this movie the benefit of the doubt. In the beginning, this movie does not look so promising. The main character, the Ant-Man Marvel has chosen to use for this movie. There are 3 Ant-Mans in Marvel lore. Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, is the kind of guy who's been in prison for 3 years for stealing something he technically didn't steal. He gets out of prison and meets up with his 3 buddies, one of them an ex-prison guy himself. He tries to get Scott into one last tussle, which Scott downright refuses, fully confident he can get a job with a degree in electrical engineering. Opportunities vanish. The job that Scott has at Baskin-Robbins goes south. So Scott, now finding himself unemployed, turns to his friend once again for the job he had originally been offered. This lands Scott in the hands of Hank Pym, the man who invented the Pym particle, who spent years researching the particle, and even more years working hard to keep his research and his work buried, who also happens to be the previous Ant-Man. Scott Lang's meeting up with Hank Pym and his daughter Hope, played by Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly, is when this movie decides to take itself more seriously. I honestly expected this movie to be a bit of a gag show, based on the silliness I was seeing in the first 10 minutes of the movie. To this movie's credit though, the silliness actually is what's part of makes this movie rather sweet. The film is entertaining, but silly at times, almost unnecessarily silly, which at first left me feeling like, what the heck am I sitting in the theater for? I am so glad Ant-Man is way better than Guardians of the Galaxy. Scott may not be a Tony Stark or Steve Rogers, but he's definitely not a Bruce Banner. In fact, none of the characters in this movie are anything like a Bruce Banner. They also don't come anywhere near to being like Thor. But they also are not a Spider-Man. I mean Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. Peter Parker is a character who works hard, sometimes too hard. Scott Lang has a little bit of Spider-Man's quirky sense of humor, but he also has some redeemable qualities, like the movie. Scott Lang is desperate to make things right for his daughter. Which is why, in a weird way, he hangs with a handful of guys who are completely capable of coming up with a solution and getting a tough job done, even if at times they don't act capable. Scott doesn't want to lose his daughter. Neither does Hank, which is why they're both taking a big risk, putting Scott inside the Ant-Man suit and training him to be the guy who'll break into a place and steal stuff. I'm sorry, attempt to steal stuff. For now, I'm intentionally leaving this review spoiler-free. Unlike most action movies, especially superhero action movies lately, all the digital effects in this movie don't feel overbearing. All the digital enhancements, the stunts, the choreography, the timing, the way the picture is shot, the cinematography, it all seemed to, it just felt fun. Everything seems to enhance the story that's being told in this latest Marvel movie. And it's a very sweet story at that. All the dynamism, the color, the pop, actually make this movie feel like it's the best comic book movie I've seen for a while. Not something as dark as Batman Begins or The Dark Knight. Whether we're watching Ant-Man get tossed about inside his apartment, go for an adventure with his Ant Army through the pipes, take on the servers in a corporate building, take on his nemesis in a helicopter, take on that nemesis again on his daughter's train set. Watch as an insect and a train toy get over-enlarged. Every scene actually feels like it's full of heart and humor. Not something I expected from Marvel Studios given their current track record. And definitely not from the scripts written by the guys who gave us Talladega Nights starring Will Ferrell. Thankfully, writing for this movie is all those guys got to do. That level of silliness shows in the character Scott and his buddies who show up twice in the movie. Once to help him get his latest gig, and then the second time to help him pull it off. And then there was that third time when his buddy tells him that an Avenger wants him to join the team. If that sounds like a spoiler, it shouldn't be. Seeing the Ant-Man take on the Falcon was one of the few true joys I got from this movie. The Falcon is another character I wasn't super familiar with until I saw the movie Captain America the Winter Soldier. I wasn't familiar with the Falcon at all, actually. But now seeing who he is and what he does, and seeing him played by Anthony Mackie, I consider myself a pretty big fan of the Falcon. Anthony Mackie seems tailor-made for the Falcon. But I'm only saying that because I've only seen a movie version of him. I give that man 4 out of 5 stars. It's funny. It's silly. It's redeemable. By focusing on the relationship between Hank and his daughter Hope, mirroring the relationship between Scott Lang and his daughter, this movie was able to take itself steps above what it could otherwise have been. A messy attempt at a superhero movie, leaving us with a tragic parody of what Marvel has come to mean for moviegoers and comic fans. As silly as it is to have a superhero whose power is to shrink to the size of an insect, Marvel proves once again it can deliver a worthwhile experience in front of the big screen. Enjoy the movie. Thank you very much for your time and have an awesome day.